The other issue that we haven't even talked about facing the NFL right now, the Washington Redskins and the ongoing controversy with the name. Apparently there's a group of Native American protesters set to gather outside Levi's Stadium on Sunday when the San Francisco 49ers host the Redskins. What is it going to take, gentlemen, for them to just say, you know what, this name is a racial slur, we'll change it, and we'll sell a bunch more merchandise, everyone will be happy?
It's a fucking racial slur. It's a racial slur. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't think that name is a racial slur is naive. That's a racial slur.
So why are the Redskins ownership just digging in like this?
Or the greasy Italians, or any other fucking ethnic group, then they'd be different. And because it's the Redskins, and the other thing is the Cleveland Indians logo is offensive.
Big Chief Wahoo.
So here you're making a big deal about the Washington Redskins, why some people who may have a legitimate complaint are going to tell the owner that he has to change the name, and now every team that has a name that would be considered offensive will have to be changed.
Why is that a bad thing?
I'm saying
was caught talking, was totally trapped by his bimbet, and he made some racial slurs, and he got ousted. They grabbed him. The players didn't want to play for him. He got ousted out of the NBA. Okay, so I'm saying to you, you're wrong. Your argument is illogical. This same scenario. The Washington Redskins. It's a racial slur to me. That's it. And end of story. And the way to make peace is to change that last name.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I just don't understand why the ownership is digging in so hard on this one.
Because he's a fucking... don't get me going. I don't understand people. People are only...
Dan Snyder's the owner.
Daniel Snyder's the owner who's basically torn that team to crap. The team actually was a dignified team under John Kent Cook, his father, Jack Kent Cook. He's made an abysmal shame of this whole operation. And part of the reason that they're going out of their way to basically change their name is because they're just looking at this guy saying, you've wrecked the team. Now you have a chance to even change the name of the team to try and do something right. He doesn't want to do that. So they can change and why would the NFL not go over this guy's head and say, you changed the name of the team?
Same thing the NBA did with, his name eludes me now, the guy who did the racial Sterling.
It was far worse what he did. They're not even in the same comparison. What the other guy did was so far beyond the point of contempt.
This guy's very public with a racial slur. The other guy did it under his breath. And this guy is being just a jerk. And he's creating this animosity and this tug of war for no reason. There's absolutely no reason.
And basically, as I just said before, there is no pressure from above, from the leadership to say, you changed the name. You're part of the club. They have the ability to tell this guy, change the name, but they don't want him. They're not asking him to change the name until they put...
They got to change one word. They can be called the Washington Red Eyes.
Or they can be called the Skins. It doesn't really... They can call themselves whatever they want to call, but until there's pressure from above, they're not going to change the name. And even so, more to the point, he'll probably go to court to challenge the people that are challenging him because he's that bent on keeping the name.
He'll lose in court.
He may lose in court, but he's basically going to... The people that want to challenge him, let's see what kind of money they have to compete against him in a court of law where it's going to cost them a heck of a lot of money.
It's not going to cost them anything because there's a trillion lawyers who will take that case because it'll be a very famous case and it's good for business. So there's not going to be much cost to them. Trust me.
I have a thought for all of you. What if they change the name of the Washington Redskins to the Washington Redblacks?
Well, we've already... Bill, that's beyond the point of being whatever you want to call it, because Frank knows, because Frank was trying to buy the Ottawa team at one point, which was called the Renegades, and here's a team, and Bill, you were part of the ownership at one point. They decided they're going to come back.
The ownership, sir.
And you know what?
I was the managing partner, and I'm not proud of it.
Okay, but I'm saying they changed the name to Renegades as if that was a big deal. And now they're going to change it to a third name called Red Blacks, which is kind of like the same colors of the Ottawa Rough Riders. They don't want to be called the Rough Riders because the Saskatchewan Rough Riders basically said, we don't want to have two teams with the same name. And in the midst of all this, we have one of the worst teams in the history of the CFL. 2-16 on this year, a terrible, terrible team. The name itself is...
And they're called the Red Blacks.
They're called the Red Blacks.
How would the American people react to an honest attempt to accommodate the change from Redskins to Red Blacks?
Well, that's assuming that name would even be in consideration, because I don't think it'll ever get to that point, because that's not necessarily... Their colors are red.
There would be a segment of the population that would be on Snyder about that.
Because it would be considered, it's okay in the Canadian Football League to call the team the Red Blacks. It's kind of folksy. It's kind of all Canadian. But this thing would never they would never ever change the names to the Red Blacks.
It should be called the Washington Skins. Skins is a great term in sports. You play for Skins in golf. It's a term, and they should be called the Washington Skins, and get rid of the fucking the red, and that's the end of that.
And you could call them the Washington Skins, and you could make a ton of money out of it for the reasons you just said right now, because it's a word that has come to mean so much now in sports, and just 100%. Anything, guys on the golf course playing for Skins, but it's not going to happen because he doesn't want to do it, and until someone forces him to do it, he won't do it.
Very. If somebody made an anti-Semitic remark in their branding, they would change that name immediately. And I'm fucking telling you right now, you're very naive if you think that this fucking moron's going to win this argument. Where he's, and I'm telling you.
And I'm telling you, you're naive because the NFL isn't forcing him to do it. As soon as Roger Goodell says, you change the name now, we don't want the bad publicity anymore, he'll change it. But they don't force him to do anything.
Anyways, guys, listen to me. It was great to talk to you guys. You guys are going to have to take the bus for the last half hour without me. I'm jumping into a meeting. I wanted to say that it was a great, quick hour and a half. Thank you very much for having me on today. And great topics. Just stay away from the Toronto Maple Leaf topic, because every time you guys talk about Toronto, I order 2 truckloads of Maalox. I mean, it's just fucking brutal. It's like being caught in a whirlpool, right? There's no way out. So I want to thank Carlin Bardsley and the great Perry Lefko and the great Billy Waters for listening to me here on www.nextsportstar.com. I'm Frank D'Angelo. I'm passing the baton, steroid-free, right to Perry Lefko.
There you go, Perry.
I really don't even know how to... You handle it, okay? You're the host. You handle that, right? Because that's, I tried to express my point as much as I possibly could to Frank, that until the NFL tells Daniel Snyder, who happens to be one of the biggest idiots in the history of sports ownership, he's not going to do anything. He's run that team into the ground. The name itself of the team is just one more example of how this guy has done an incredibly bad thing to ruin one of the strongest sports properties in the history of sports. A team that was built on the foundation of an owner who understood what it was like to own a sports franchise. Not some young guy who just had a lot of money and has done everything you could possibly do wrong in terms of running a sports franchise. If you wanted to go to a business school and hold up a platform, or at least a prototype, how not to run a sports franchise, you would put Daniel Snyder and the Washington Redskins as case one. The whole thing that happened with the NBA team, their owner, that's a completely different story altogether. This is a guy who legitimately was a racist. I don't think Daniel Snyder's a racist. I just think he's hung up on his name and no one's going to tell him what to do.
Bill, why do you think Roger Goodell hasn't had a heart-to-heart with Snyder yet, to saying, listen, we've got enough of these things that you're making me look bad, just change the friggin' thing and make millions in new merchandise?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's perplexing. I think that they've gotten together and said, these guys are not going to change my name. And if you want to change my name, it'll cost you X number of dollars. You'll buy the team plus a bonus to change the name. I think that, I don't know Dan Snyder, but I talked about him the way Perry would. He's an incompetent.
He's a young guy who's got a ton of money, bought the team, and basically just ran that team into the ground. Now you have a situation where you've got the coach of the team is taking shots at the starting quarterback. It's that bad, it's that polluted, it's that puerile. This is what the Washington Redskins have become under the stewardship of Daniel Snyder.
Yep, and when George Allen was coaching the Washington Redskins, they were the biggest thing in America. And nobody complained about their name.
Again, yeah, is this the product of our times that people are being very sensitive about a name, or is it concurrent to the fact that you've got a terrible, terrible franchise run by a guy who has no idea what he's doing, and on top of that, well, we're going to make an issue about the name. If he had run this organization solidly, professionally, like a true franchise should be run, he probably would change the name. But you have a situation where...
He could verbalize the problem, and there is a problem, let's acknowledge that. But if he could verbalize it in a way that the other side would have some compassion or understanding for why he'd like to keep it, and at least open a dialogue with the people who think they're being offended, and are, then it might be different. But he doesn't, he just puts his head down and draws up the next head coach.
Or the next starting quarterback, or the next...
There's no understanding of what it takes to maintain the solidarity of a good franchise, and that is incumbent upon the owner having at least some experience in how to deal with people and the problems of same, because he has not dealt with this problem very well.